Hello students, welcome back to my channel. In this session, I am doing synopsis of the chapter Ecosystem. So this is the 14th chapter in your second PU syllabus and the chapter name is Ecosystem. And you may be heard about ecology. So this ecosystem chapter comes under ecology, and ecology, that is a branch of biology that deals with the interrelationship among organisms and interaction between organisms and their environment. See, whatever the organisms which comes under the ecology, so they must interact with each other. So in that branch, we have one topic, one chapter named as ecosystem. So then what is the ecosystem? So how can you define ecosystem and who coined the term ecosystem? Actually, the term ecosystem was coined by a scientist, Sir Arthur Tansley. Sir Arthur Tansley. The term ecosystem was coined by Sir Arthur Tansley in the year 1935. You should remember the term ecosystem was coined by Sir Arthur Tansley in the year 1935. And here we have given a list that is a past NEET papers subtopic level analysis. So in which year, how many number of questions are arised from this ecosystem chapter, and from which topic the questions have been arised, everything we have mentioned here. You can have a glance about the topics. Next. So what is ecosystem, or how can you define ecosystem? So ecosystem, it is a fundamental unit of nature where living organisms interact among themselves and also with the surrounding physical environment. See, in the ecosystem, the biotic and abiotic components are there. Biotic components are nothing but the living organisms which are present on the Earth's surface, and the abiotic components may be air, water, etc. All those will be the abiotic components. So here, an ecosystem, it is a functional unit. So whenever we say ecosystem, it is always a functional unit of nature. The ecosystem, it is a functional unit of nature where the living organisms interact among themselves. See, in an ecosystem, the living organisms interact among themselves. See, we the humans, we will be interacting among ourselves, and even we are interacting with the other living organisms. So that is called the living organisms interact among themselves. And not only the organisms interacting among themselves, and even also with the surrounding physical environment. So we cannot interact with the humans only. We are also interacting with the surrounding physical environment, because we are mainly dependent upon air, water, etc. So they are the part of the physical environment. So we are dependent on those substances which are present in the physical environment, which means we are also interacting with the surrounding physical environment. So an ecosystem, it is a functional unit of nature where the living organisms interact among themselves and also with the surrounding physical environment. So this definition is very important for the ecosystem, and the term ecosystem was coined by Sir Arthur Tansley in the year 1935. Next, when we go for the types of ecosystem, the types of ecosystem, or we can say that the patterns of ecosystem. So these are the patterns of ecosystem, are the types of ecosystem. See, the types are mainly, there are three types of ecosystem. One is terrestrial ecosystem, aquatic ecosystem, and man-made ecosystem. So first one, terrestrial ecosystem, this can also be called as land ecosystem. The terrestrial ecosystem can also be called as a land ecosystem. And one thing you should remember, whenever we say an ecosystem, the ecosystem must and should comprising of two important components. One is biotic component, the other one is abiotic components. If these two components are there, then we can say that it is an ecosystem. If any one of the component is lacking, it cannot be called as ecosystem, and we will call it as an incomplete ecosystem. So whenever we say an ecosystem, the ecosystem must and should contain the biotic and abiotic components. The biotic components are the living organisms, and abiotic components are the physical factors such as water, temperature, air, light, pH, etc. All these are the abiotic components. See here, terrestrial ecosystem or land ecosystem. So here we have mentioned few examples for terrestrial ecosystem. One is forest ecosystem, grassland ecosystem, and desert ecosystem. So every time I mention it is a ecosystem. If it is a forest ecosystem, can you consider forest as a ecosystem? Yes, because in a forest, whatever the trees and animals which are present, they are the biotic components, and the soil, water, air, etc. are the abiotic components in the forest. That's why forest is an example, and it is a terrestrial because soil is the major abiotic component, so that it is an example for terrestrial ecosystem. And next one, grassland ecosystem. Even in the grassland, so the grass and other plants including certain animals, they are the biotic components, and soil, water, etc. are the non-living components. So even it is also an example for terrestrial ecosystem. And desert ecosystem. So we can call desert also as a ecosystem because you will find many number of desert plants and animals in the desert, and sand is the major abiotic component, so that it is also an example for terrestrial ecosystem. So terrestrial ecosystem are also called as land ecosystem, and these are the examples for terrestrial ecosystem. Next one, aquatic ecosystem. The aquatic ecosystem can also be called as water ecosystem because there water is the major abiotic component. In aquatic ecosystem, water is the major abiotic component. We'll see the examples. See, pond, lake, wetland, river and estuary, these are the ecosystems that comes under aquatic ecosystem. See, in all these examples, water is the major abiotic component. Along with water, it may also contain oxygen and even soil, but the major abiotic component is water. And do you find the biotic components in all these examples? Yes, if you take the example pond, whatever the freshwater fishes, frog and some other organisms which are present, they are the living organisms, and even some aquatic plants are also present. So all those plants, aquatic plants and aquatic animals, they are the biotic components in all these ecosystems, and water is the abiotic component, so all these comes under aquatic ecosystem. And we will be discussing pond ecosystem in detail later, then you will come to understand in detail. Next one, last one, man-made ecosystem. So this man-made ecosystem can also be called as artificial ecosystem, or can also be called as anthropogenic. So man-made ecosystem can also be called as artificial ecosystem or anthropogenic. So why it is said to be artificial? Because see, all these are the naturally occurring ecosystems, but this one man-made ecosystem, as the man or humans are contributing for this for the creation of ecosystem, that's why it is said to be artificial or anthropogenic, because they are man-made. And we'll see the examples: crop fields and aquarium. See, crop fields that are created by humans, and crop field mainly comprising of certain plants, the biotic components, and non-living components such as sand, water, etc. So crop field, it is one best example for man-made ecosystem. And aquarium, even aquariums are also created by humans, which comprising of fishes and some aquatic plants, along with the water as a abiotic component, so that these two are the best examples for man-made ecosystem. And the entire biosphere can be regarded as a global ecosystem. See, many ecologists regarded that the entire biosphere as a global ecosystem. So entire biosphere, whatever the different varieties of ecosystems like a forest ecosystem, pond ecosystem, all together it is said to be a global ecosystem. It is said to be global ecosystem. So why it is said to be the global ecosystem? Because the entire biosphere is made up of different varieties of ecosystems. That's why it is said to be the global ecosystem. Next one, ecosystem structure and function. So this is very important. And one more thing you should remember about the man-made ecosystem. So here we have given crop fields are agriculture, or it can also be called as agro-ecosystem. Agro-ecosystem, it is the largest man-made ecosystem. The crop field or agriculture or agro-ecosystem, it is the largest man-made ecosystem. And already I told you, if any ecosystem that lacks one or the other component, it is said to be the incomplete ecosystem. If you find only biotic components, not the abiotic, or only abiotic without biotic, so such a ecosystem is said to be incomplete ecosystem. Incomplete ecosystem. So now we'll move on to the ecosystem structure and function. So here in an ecosystem, interaction of biotic and abiotic components occurs. These components functions as a unit. So in every ecosystem we will find biotic components and abiotic components, and there must be an interaction between biotic and abiotic components. That's why these components functions as a unit. In any ecosystem, these two components are always interacting with each other. That's why they will function as a unit. Next, so if you want to know the examples for biotic and abiotic components, already I told you the biotic components, they are the living organisms which are present in the ecosystem. It may be a plant, animal, microorganism or anything. And so next, when we discuss about the plants and animals, see food, the different biotic components are connected through food and a number of other relations. So whatever the biotic components we will mention, it may be a plant, animal, microorganism, anything, they are connected. All those biotic components are connected through the food. Because one organism which is dependent on other organism for obtaining food and nourishment, that's why the biotic components are always connected through the food. Then what is actually a food? Food actually, it is a group of materials that contain energy and ingredients which are essential for body building, growth and body functions. So what the food we are daily taking, that food, it is a group of materials that mainly contains what? It is energy and other ingredients. So those ingredients are very essential for our body building, growth and body functions. And how the food is manufactured, you all know that the food is manufactured from the inorganic raw materials by plants. So plants are the one and only producers, are also called as autotrophs, because they will prepare their own food with the help of a process called as photosynthesis. So photosynthesis, as it is seen only in case of plants, only plants can able to manufacture the food, and that food will be transferred from one organism to other organism. So how means, if this plant is eaten by some other organism, or for example, if we eat plants, whatever the food which is present in the plant, that will be transferred into the humans or other organism. Likewise, the plants are the producers, they will manufacture the food, and that food will be transferred from one organism to other organisms. And these plants, as I said, they are autotrophs, and autotrophs are always producers because they are manufacturing the food. Next, other organisms which cannot manufacture their own food, they are called as heterotrophs. Autotrophs are, they can able to manufacture the food, and other organisms which cannot able to prepare their own food, they are called as heterotrophs. And when we look at the heterotrophs, so here heterotrophs can be classified into two types. One is called consumers, other one is decomposers. So heterotrophs may be consumers and decomposers. Then these consumers, they may be herbivores or carnivores. You should remember all these. Heterotrophs may be consumers and decomposers. And these consumers are again of two types. One is herbivores and the other one is carnivores. So what are herbivores then? You know, consumers, they will be consuming or they are dependent on other organisms. So producers, they are the photosynthetic or autotrophic organisms. They can able to manufacture their own food with the help of photosynthesis. And the consumers, they are mainly dependent upon the producers. They are mainly dependent on other organisms to obtain food and energy. And as I said, consumers, they may be herbivores and carnivores. You know what are herbivores? The herbivores are the organisms which obtain their food and nourishment from the plants. So herbivores, as the name indicates, herb, they are mainly feeding upon the herbs or plants in order to obtain the food and nutrition. And these herbivores, the herbivores are said to be the primary consumers. So heterotrophs are of two types, consumers and decomposers. And again, so consumers are classified into herbivores and carnivores. Herbivores and carnivores. Okay, herbivores and carnivores. Here, herbivores, as they are directly feeding upon the plants. We'll write a simple example. So here, it is a plant. So this plant is eaten by a rabbit. And this rabbit is eaten by a wolf. And this wolf is eaten by a vulture. So it is a simple food chain I have written here. See, these plants will be the food for rabbit and rabbit will be the food for wolf and wolf is the food for vulture. So here plants, as they are autotrophs, they are said to be the producers. They are the producers. And all these organisms comes under heterotrophs because they cannot manufacture their own food. And these heterotrophs may be consumers. See, all these are consumers, but again consumers are classified into primary consumers, secondary consumers and tertiary consumers. So how it is said to be primary, secondary and tertiary? Here, a rabbit, it is a herbivore. It is a herbivore. So why it is called as herbivore? Because it is directly feeding upon the plant. And these herbivores are always primary consumers. So primary consumers, they are feeding upon the plants or producers and they are also called as herbivores. And wolf, it is a carnivore. This is a carnivore. This is a carnivore. So here we will call it as a primary carnivore and secondary carnivore. Primary carnivore and secondary carnivore. So why it is primary carnivore? Because it is the organism which feeds upon the herbivore. The organism which feeds on herbivore, it is said to be primary carnivore, but this will be the secondary consumer. Don't get confused. Here the plants are the producers. Rabbit, it is a herbivore. So herbivores, the first consumers. So the first consumers, it is a primary consumer, that is always herbivore. Primary consumers are always herbivores. And wolf, it is a carnivore because it feeds upon the other organism that mainly feeds upon the plant. Or simply you can remember the organism which feeds upon herbivore, it is said to be primary carnivore. And the organism which feeds upon primary carnivore, it is called secondary carnivore. If another organism which feeds upon secondary carnivore, that will become tertiary carnivore. But when we want to write as a consumers, so this is the one and only producer and all these are consumers. So this one will become primary consumer, this is secondary consumer, this is a tertiary consumer, likewise. So you will come to understand later in detail. So next one, as I said, decomposers. So what are decomposers? Decomposers are the saprotrophs or saprophytic organisms that mainly feeds upon dead and decaying organic matter. If any of these organisms, they undergo death, at that time during decay, the decomposers play a very important role. Decomposers are said to be the scavengers, are also called as the saprophytic organisms. They mainly feed upon dead and decaying organic matter. Dead and decaying organic matter. Then abiotic components already I have mentioned. So there are different types of abiotic components are there. Here I mentioned only the biotic components, plants. When we discuss about the plants, we are discussed the producers, consumers, in that heterotrophs, decomposers, etc. Now the abiotic components. So which are the important abiotic components? And abiotic components are the non-living factors, namely the inorganic compounds and energy. It is collectively called as abiotic component. So abiotic components are always non-living factors and they are inorganic compounds along with energy. And in that temperature, so temperature is very important and is a universally important ecological factor, and even it is said to be the limiting factor. So temperature play a very important role in every ecosystem because the range of temperature is very important. The range of temperature is very important. See, the organisms, they generally live within a narrow range of temperature. All the living organisms, they will live in a narrow range of temperature, maybe around 5 to 35 degrees Celsius. So the organisms generally they will live in this range of temperature, and temperature greatly varies in different parts of the earth. So temperature, it is not static every time or everywhere. So it will be changing or greatly varies in different parts of the earth. And it has created different life zones. So depending upon the temperature range, we have different life zones. For example, tropical region, subtropical region, temperate region, Arctic region and alpine region. So when you analyze the globe, so in the globe, so there are different life zones depending upon the temperature. So this is said to be the tropical region, then temperate, subtropical region, temperate region, Arctic region and alpine region, like that. So there are different life zones based on the temperature. And if there is a high or low temperature, that causes inactivity or death of the organisms. So you already discussed in the photosynthesis chapter. So if there is a high or low temperature, that usually causes inactivity or death of the organisms. And depending upon the temperature only, we can classify the organisms like a cold-blooded, warm-blooded, likewise everything that is about the temperature. And light, so light usually provides a solar energy to the ecosystem. So for any ecosystem, the solar energy is very important. That light only provides a solar energy. By utilizing solar energy, the producers or autotrophic organisms, they can able to manufacture their own food. And again, when we look at the globe, the rate of photosynthesis is maximum. It is a maximum in the tropical region because the light intensity, it is a maximum in the this region. So this is the Arctic, this is the tropical region. In the tropical region, we can get the maximum solar energy, so that the rate of photosynthesis is maximum. Next, water. Water is said to be the liquid of life. So it is very essential for the existence of life activities on the earth surface. And you know that land plants, they need water and they obtain their water from the soil. And land animals also obtain the same water from the pools, lakes, etc. And in some certain plant species, they will be adapted to reduce the rate of water loss. You know, xerophytes. Xerophytes, they are the plants, they are growing in xeric habitat or where the water availability is very less. So when there is a less availability of water, at that time the plants show modification to reduce the water loss. So one best example, cactus, a desert plant, a xerophytic plant which is growing in water scarcity area. So where there is a scarcity of water, in that area it is growing, so that it has to reduce the water loss, otherwise the plant cannot able to survive. And even certain animals of dry areas, they do not drink water at all. So water is very essential, it is very required, but in certain conditions, if there is a less water availability, at that time in that region, the plants or animals show modification to reduce the water loss. And even soil is another important factor. Wind, humidity, everything is very important. So next, when we discuss about See here, as I said, there is an interaction between biotic and abiotic components in an ecosystem. So here, whatever the plant and animal species which are present in an ecosystem, the identification and enumeration of plant and animal species in an ecosystem, that is said to be the species composition. Species composition. So in the ecosystem structure, you will come to know what is species composition. So if they ask what is species composition, the identification and enumeration of the plant and animal species in an ecosystem. For example, if you take a pond ecosystem, whatever the living organisms which are present, it may be a plant, it may be an animal. So you need to identify and enumerate the plant and animal species in an ecosystem, that called species composition. And we have one more concept called as a stratification. The vertical distribution of different species occupying different levels is called as stratification. So this is very important. So what is stratification means? It is the vertical distribution of different species occupying different levels. It is called stratification. So for this we can take one best example in a forest. So in a forest, so I will share some images related to stratification and different types of ecosystem. See, for example, so if we take a forest as an example for stratification, you know, there are large trees which are present in the forest, and we have small trees and shrubs and herbs, then grass. So likewise, there are different varieties of and different heights of plants can be seen in a forest. And here, when we look at the stratification, here we can find layers. So this is the topmost layer, the large trees are the trees of vertical strata. So these are the large trees. They occupy the top strata. They occupy the top strata. And in the second strata, small trees will come. And in the third strata, shrubs will come, and in the next strata herbs, and lastly grass. Likewise, so this is the vertical distribution. The vertical distribution of different species occupying different levels. See here, these are different species. All these are different species and occupying different levels, because the trees have this level and small trees having this level, and shrubs, herbs, grass, you will find different levels, and these different levels only called as different strata, that is called as stratification. So in order to understand stratification, you need to imagine in a forest the different varieties of trees, shrubs, herbs, grass. So that is called as stratification. So here they have given example. Trees occupy top vertical strata, top layer, because they are showing maximum height. So that's why they occupy the top vertical strata. And shrub is the second strata. So here I have given small trees. If you skip small trees, next will be the shrubs. So shrubs will be the second strata, and herbs and grass occupy the bottom layers. The bottom layer mainly comprising of herbs and grass. So that is called as stratification. So what is stratification? It is the vertical distribution of different species occupying different levels. It is called as stratification. Best example, trees in a forest occupy the vertical strata, top strata, then followed by the shrubs, then followed by herbs and grasses. So next, very importantly, there are four basic components of functioning of an ecosystem. So when we look at the ecosystem function, the ecosystem function comprising of four important components. So these are the four basic components of a functioning of an ecosystem. In order to function an ecosystem, that must and should comprising of these four basic components. So here in the first one, productivity, second one, decomposition, third one, energy flow, and last one, nutrient cycling. So there are four basic components. You should remember this one. This is very important. The four basic components of an ecosystem is productivity, decomposition, energy flow, and nutrient cycling. So then what is the productivity and what is decomposition, what is energy flow, nutrient cycling, everything we can understand later. First we will take one simple example in order to understand all these four components. So one best example we are taking is a pond ecosystem. So pond ecosystem, it is an example for aquatic ecosystem because here the major abiotic component will be the water. So here, see, a pond is a shallow, simple, self-sustainable water body that exhibits all basic components of an ecosystem. So pond ecosystem is one best example in order to understand all these four basic components of the ecosystem. So first we will see the abiotic components in pond. Whatever the abiotic components are there in the pond, that is water and the rich soil deposit at the bottom. In a pond, majority water will be there. In the bottom of the pond, we can find the presence of soil deposit. And climatic conditions, the solar input will be there. The cycle of temperature will be there, day length, etc. And next one, autotrophic components. So what are the producers or autotrophic components which are present in the pond? So here we have phytoplanktons, some algae and the floating, submerged and marginal plants. So for this also I have an image that I will share to in your group. See, autotrophic phytoplanktons. So what are phytoplanktons? The phytoplanktons, they are the free-floating aquatic organisms which freely float on the surface of the water. So here, okay. So the phytoplanktons are the microscopic plants which are freely floating on the surface of water. They are said to be the phytoplanktons. So these phytoplanktons can also able to synthesize their own food. So these are also the autotrophs or photosynthetic organisms, even some algae and floating. If the plants which are floating on the surface of water, they are the floating plants, and submerged. If they are completely submerged in the water, they are called submerged, and marginal plants. So if this is the pond, whatever the plants which are present in the margin of the pond, they are called as marginal plants. So all these are autotrophic components. And which are the consumers? So which are the consumers or heterotrophs in that ecosystem, pond ecosystem? It is zooplanktons. Again, zooplanktons are the small microscopic organisms which freely float on the surface of water, and free swimming and bottom dwelling forms. So there may be free swimming fishes and bottom dwelling some organisms can also present at the bottom of the pond. So all these are the consumers. And these consumers may be primary consumers, secondary consumers, etc. And again, decomposers. So decomposers are the saprophytic organisms. They may be fungi, bacteria and some other flagellates. And see, the pond perform all the functions of an ecosystem such as conversion of inorganic into organic material with the help of radiant energy of the sun by autotrophs. So conversion of inorganic into organic material. You know that the plants, they will obtain solar energy or light energy and it gets converted into chemical energy. So that conversion of inorganic into organic material with the help of radiant energy, it is done by the autotrophs. Then which are the autotrophs? The plants are the autotrophs. So as the plants which are present in the pond ecosystem, they will convert the inorganic into organic material with the help of radiant energy or solar energy. And next one. So consumption of the autotrophs by heterotrophs. Consumption of autotrophs by heterotrophs. Because autotrophs, as they manufacture their own food, these autotrophs will be eaten by some heterotrophs. And next, decomposition and mineralization of the dead matter to release them back for reuse by the autotrophs. So if the plant or animal, if it is undergone death, so that death is followed by decomposition, and this decomposition will be done with the help of fungi, bacteria, etc. So during decomposition, the minerals will be released. So as the plant or animal body which undergo fragmentation, at that time the minerals will be released, that is called as mineralization. And these minerals, whatever the minerals which are released from the dead matter, so that will be reused by the autotrophs. See, for example, if certain minerals are released from the dead matter, it may be calcium, magnesium, iron, etc. So all these minerals will be again reused by the autotrophs, means plants. You know, you already studied the mineral nutrition chapter where plants require some essential elements. They may be macro elements or micro elements. So they must and should require the elements. So here, let us recall, I said pond ecosystem, it is one best example to understand all the four functional components of the ecosystem. In that first one, productivity. So what is the productivity? Actually, whatever the product or whatever the food synthesized by the plant, it is called as productivity. So what is productivity? Whatever the food synthesized by the autotrophs or photosynthetic organisms, that is called as productivity. So here productivity we can expect because already we have aquatic plants. So aquatic plants, as the aquatic plants like submerged plants or marginal plants or free floating plants, all these they will be performing photosynthesis. So they will manufacture the food. So the food is synthesized means productivity will be done in the pond ecosystem. Then decomposition. So after the death of the plant and animals in that ecosystem, they will undergo decomposition. They will undergo decomposition with the help of fungi, bacteria, etc. So during decomposition, whatever the minerals released, so that will be transferring from soil to plants again. So that is called as energy flow. And lastly, the nutrients will be recycled or they will be again utilized by the autotrophs. So that is called as nutrient cycling. So this is one best example to understand all these components. And again we are discussing in detail about the productivity, decomposition, energy flow and nutrient cycling. So in this session, so we will stop here. In the next class we will continue with the productivity. So this chapter is very, very important for your NEET CET. So try to make a points for this. So let's end it here. We'll discuss in the next class.